And what's good, everybody? It's Pete Camarillo here with
Kenneth Frank James Berry.
And we're live for Touchdowns and Tangents Radio via the Good News radio station, website, and app, as well as our replay affiliates, Full Press Radio Network and the xsquadradio.com. So, shout out to all of them, all the plugs. But yeah, man, another great week. Week 1, football's finally here. It's official. KB, thoughts?
I mean, I'm not going to watch any games, but I will only keep up with stats and scores strictly for fantasy football reasons. Because TDs and Tangents go 73 deep. That's the name of my fantasy football team, and I'm busting ass.
Nobody cares about your fantasy team. But yeah,
is that
that's
the name
cool.
of this episode?
It might be. But yeah, man, football's here, and I couldn't be more disappointed. For obvious reasons, Khalil Mack, the franchise best player in decades,
since Marcus Allen,
was traded. For what? A first-round pick, essentially. Because when you really break it down...
2 first-round picks really doesn't equate to a trade.
Well, when you break it down, essentially, because the Raiders gave up a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick, it's almost like they swapped up. But really, realistically, when you break it down, like, it's pretty much they swapped. They swapped some picks and traded Khalil Mack for a first-round pick.
And they cut Martavis Bryant, so they wasted a third-round pick. And then they traded for
which they
AJ
essentially gave Josh Rosen up for free because they cut Martavis Bryant. They traded the 9th pick.
10th pick.
No, they had the 9th.
No, the Niners had the 9th pick because they got McGlinchey out of Notre Dame.
No. I thought
they had the 10th pick. Nope, they had the 10th pick.
No, they had the 8 and 9.
Nah, because the Raiders had the 10th pick.
No, you got it wrong.
We can check. You can check it right now. I'm telling you, the Niners, because the Rod Woodson cost the Raiders a coin flip, and that's why the Niners got the 9th overall pick, and the Raiders got the 10th overall pick.
Yeah, so before we get to our first guest,
say you were wrong.
What are your initial thoughts on the Khalil Mack trade? And you don't have to get into the full pity because we can save that for after
I'm going to
guest.
save that hatred and venom for later. But it's like when that story of when God sent a man, like a boat, a neighbor, a plane, a train, an automobile, a Colt 45 and 2 zigzags, all that shit.
Yeah, you're right. The Raiders had the 10th pick. I'm tripping.
I know these things.
I thought it was 8 and 9 they had, but
nah, I think the Bears had like the 8th pick.
the Bears had 8. They took Rowe.
Yeah, don't get. Okay, I'm getting angry. All right, so
Leonard
bottom
Floyd,
line is
Roquan Smith, and Khalil Mack.
No, Leonard Floyd.
That's what I said.
I thought you said something else, Floyd. I thought you said Leonard Fournette for some reason. Whatever. Bottom line is, and they passed on that safety that the Bears have, and Adrian Amos. The Raiders could have drafted him when he came out. But, they're stupid. It's like, I look at it as God gave the Raiders, like, a boat, like, so many different ways to get out of a flood that was their franchise in Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was, like, their golden child. Like, in super nerd terms, he literally was all 7 Dragon Balls, and you wished for a fucking Pinto.
I think the biggest
Thank you, John Gruden.
The biggest thing is, Boogie Brooks said this, you invest all this time, all these resources into the NFL draft to get a Khalil Mack. You're talking about a player who never missed a game in his entire career.
2-star recruit coming and went to Buffalo, a small school that doesn't produce NFL players, and he becomes an All-American.
He's never been a distraction. He played multiple positions, multiple schemes. He became a captain, a leader.
An All-Pro at 2 different positions in the same year.
Literally what everybody hopes for when they get a top 5 pick.
Upgraded your entire defense.
And you just traded that away. For
a pack of Skittles and
the worst part is if the Bears are actually good and this first round pick is
that's a late first round pick.
even if they're decent, which I think they will be, you're looking at a 15th, 16th,
18th overall,
something like that.
And by the way,
that's trash.
Khalil Mack was the 5th overall pick when he came out. So you traded a top 5 Hall of Fame caliber player for a bottom of the first round pick. You're stupider than the Saints.
He was the best thing that Reggie McKenzie ever did. He was the best player in the Raiders' best draft potentially ever.
You gave him up for...
And a lot of people were saying this, man, and I got to second them.
A crackhead and a second.
I'm surprised Reggie McKenzie made the 53-man roster because trading away Khalil Mack...
That's the final straw.
That had to have hurt him, and I think that's the biggest.
They made him do
it.
The
biggest issue that I had with the whole trade is from the start when we fired Hugh Jackson, tore apart the roster,
which wasn't necessary to do, by the way.
We got sold a whole process, reconstruction, rebuild, and now like redemption. And now, essentially, with this trade, we're all the way back at the bottom. All the way starting all over again.
See, I'm going to have to stop you with we because I have an announcement to make.
Wait. Let's just hold on to it.
Okay, I'll postpone that announcement, but it's coming.
Yeah, man. And ultimately, for what?
$100 million head coach who actually hasn't won a playoff game in 16 years. And when he did win the Super Bowl, it was with somebody else's players. And when he did draft you players, they were shit. And the quarterback he got was a bust. Josh Freeman out of Kansas State, the only Kansas State quarterback you ever need to remember. And everybody else was a bust.
And here's our guest.
I was like, please don't hit the red button. Caller, what's your name and where you're from?
Hey, man, this is Chris Simmons of the Raider Ramble. I'm from Los Angeles. Pete's a buddy of mine. We used to write together on the on FPC full press coverage for the Raiders.
Yeah, man. Well, I was going to introduce you, but since you already did that.
That was a smooth transition.
Yeah, no, that was good, though. That was good, though. You were ready.
After all these times we was talking, saying, are you were ever going to come on? And then he's ready. He was more prepared than the Raiders front office.
I've been in the wind recently, but I'm here now.
All right.
We appreciate it.
All right, Chris. Well, thank you for joining us, man. We already started on the topic of Khalil Mack. So I'll just go ahead and ask you, when you were doing whatever you were doing and you saw the tweet or the Bleacher Report update or whatever, Apple News, however you got the news.
Where were you and how did it make you feel?
What was your first thought?
First off, I'm an early riser. You know, I regularly am up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock on a Saturday, Sunday, long weekend, short weekend, doesn't really matter. So I woke up to them talking about it being like finalized before the Bleacher Report update, before any of the Schefter tweets. It was just it was pretty insane. And of course I was pissed off just like everybody else, but at the same time, like, I don't know, man. At the end of the day, it's a business. You know, it's like when the move to Vegas got announced, it wasn't really a shock to me. Not because I expected it, but mostly because I've learned to expect the unexpected. You know what I mean? Like, to just be prepared for the reality that it's a business, and that if you forget that, then you will get a bit too emotionally attached and maybe not see the long game. Because I'm not a fan of it, but there's a long game at play here. Whether or not it's a good game remains to be seen.
Well, we live to see it.
I think the only issue with what I have with you're saying is I feel like as a Raider fan, we've been in the business of the draft, especially since Reggie McKenzie's here. And to essentially trade the best thing we've gotten from that, it just didn't make sense to me. Still doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely right. But I'll put it like this. How many of us, just the nation as a whole, not, myself as a Raider, but how many of us are excited about, P.J. Hall and Maurice Hurst and Arden Key? Like, I'm not saying that Arden Key himself makes Khalil Mack expendable. Like, no, that's not the case, None of those guys can play the run. None of those guys have 40 sacks in 4 years. Like, none of those guys are former defensive player of the years. None of those guys are that good, at least not now, and they probably won't ever be that good. But by that same token, like, last year we sucked, and Khalil Mack was by far our best player, and it wasn't even close. And clearly, this is Gruden saying he evaluated our team and came to the same conclusion that I began to come to over the course of the offseason, where the reality of it is there are holes all over the roster. Like, let's say Gary and Conley pans out. We still need another corner because Melvin's gone. / we don't want to make an investment in another David Emerson. We still don't have a middle linebacker. Marcel Lee, he might be good, but he's likely a rotational guy. And that's not even dealing with the fact that Seth Roberts is still on the roster and he legitimately deserved to make the roster, which doesn't make me feel great. We still don't know what Parker's got. Colton Miller, we hope, is not a bust. In the end, like, there are so many holes in the roster, so many question marks, that I can see the logic in Gruden coming in and saying, you know what, I'd like to get some guys who are B minus, B plus. Maybe they're not A plus, S level players like Khalil Mack is, genuine, true blue chipper. But by that same token, like, how many teams? I would ask you, go down the Philly roster and you tell me how many Khalil Macks are on that roster, and then you tell me how many times they hit on a draft pick that wasn't, a home run, but was maybe a double or a triple with, guys who contribute the entire time, and in multiple ways. I love Mac, but, at the end of the day, we're now going to have 4 shots in the next 2 first rounds of the draft. And, I'm sure you guys saw that graphic that came out about how 30% of the league are undrafted free agents and the next highest percentage is, all first rounders. That's for a reason.
I do agree with part of that, but the issue with the Philly thing is they won a Super Bowl. The Raiders didn't make the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because this is the question I've been asking myself, and I've been posing to the Ramble, and I've been posing to any Raider fan who will listen. How close do you think the team really is?
I felt like they were really close.
2-14
until whatever happened. Are you talking about chemistry-wise? I thought you meant chemistry-wise.
No. I'm saying however you want to take it. It could be chemistry. It could be talent. It could be cap. However you internalize this fundamental question.
Chemistry-wise,
where the Raiders are.
Chemistry-wise, I felt like they were close until whatever happened last year. And now that kind of put a question mark into exactly how close they were. And all I know is rumors. I don't know exactly what happened. No, nobody really knows. Nobody's really saying anything other than the people that were in the organization. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if it really became a Khalil Mack versus a Derek Carr thing, because from everything I've seen in the public, they've been virtually brothers, and they've really loved and embraced each other. So I don't believe that, but those are the things that I'm reading. So
I think.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say Derek and Khalil, match made in heaven. But realistically, I think after that second year, Reggie and them knew, okay. I think Reggie probably wanted to pay Mac first. If I just had to guess and play devil's advocate, the smarter thing would be to plan to pay Mac first, because Donald was in that same draft class, and they're gonna go as they go. Derek Carr, looked kind of good, but even in his best year, there were still some holes, and there still are some holes in his game. And that offense was kind of a patchwork. Like, let's be honest, Crabtree was never gonna last.
You good, bro? You good?
I live in Los Angeles, so that
No, I feel it.
Is that sounds like some dude who's...
It's all good, as long as you're good.
Yeah, some fan heart finally gave out, some long-term friend.
I think it's fair, but in the end, Derek was the second-round pick, so that means his contract is coming up sooner. He didn't have the fifth-year option where the team can, kick the can down the road. And I think while it's fair that, of course they'd rather have gotten Khalil Mack under